Hey guys, just got up and have driven to the starting site of this marathon run. I feel pretty fresh, and it's just about hoping that the training went well and it all pays off. That's all you can hope for now.
You got 200 meters more, or are you done?
You alright?
Oh my god.
Hey guys, welcome to the video. My name's Tyson. If you're new here, my name's Tyson. I'm an athlete and my background is mainly in Olympic lifting and gymnastics strength training. For the last 4 months, I switched my training over to primarily endurance work, and by golly, did I lose my physique. So I ran a marathon. So now what we all want to know. I started the marathon training on the 15th of December 2019 and I weighed 83 kilos, which is 183 pounds. And after the 16 weeks, I ran the marathon on the 5th of April 2020 and I weighed 78 kilos or 172 pounds. It's mostly muscle. I don't really carry fat on me. You can see a loss of muscle mass in the quads. You can see a loss of muscle mass kind of all over. I mean, the after picture is me after the marathon. So there's already a lot of fluid loss here. So I'm gonna look a bit drawn out and not as full, but I definitely lost size. I definitely lost muscle mass, and this isn't news. You do need some muscle, you need some strength, but compared to weightlifting, bodybuilding, crossfitting, gymnastics, strength training, Olympic weightlifting, you need nowhere near as much muscle mass to get the job done. I'll get that back if I train for it. I do prefer the before photo and I took that sacrifice to experience what it's like. I can judge it all I like, but unless I've done it, I'm not going to understand what it actually takes to be able to run those long distances, what it does to the body, how it makes you feel. Just because it doesn't have the desired aesthetic look doesn't mean it's not a physical and, as I found out, mental challenge to do it. So there's definitely more respect there for the sport of long distance running or endurance training in general. The actual running of the marathon started at 6 a.m. It took me 4 hours to run the marathon. So just speaking honestly, that was not the time that I wanted. I wanted to run the marathon at 3 hours 45 and I wanted to at least run sub 4 hours. Things started off pretty well. At about the 10K mark, I had to shit. My training partner had obviously I didn't even tell them, I just peeled off and they kept running. So I kind of wanted to catch up to them, but I knew if I put in the effort to catch up, that was gonna pay me back a lot worse later in the run. I didn't catch up to him, but I definitely, not even really meaning to, but kind of meaning to, ran way quicker for 3 or 4 kilometers. I'm so used to sprinting that it's hard to not think every moment matters. That whole scenario definitely came back to hurt me. The second thing was this pain that was going up my leg. I think it was an intricate cramp, because it wasn't a cramp of the whole muscle, but it was a specific pain. I found the marathon was not physically difficult. It was mentally one of the hardest things I've ever done. Just for 4 hours in pain to just keep pushing was so difficult that it was quite emotional when I actually finished the run. Not because I was like, oh, help. There was just a sense of relief after you were pushing yourself for that. That's hard to explain, but it was really mentally difficult. I didn't want to quit. It was just mentally difficult to keep putting a foot in front of the other to get to the finish line. And it's not something you'll appreciate until you do it. there's so many things that could affect performance on your actual marathon day that yes, you should have a time to aim for, but don't hang yourself on the fact that you don't hit those times, because too many things will impact it, and the first marathon should just kind of go down as experience. So, I'm not boasting to be an expert on long distance running or anything like that. I'm not saying do what I do, but I want to show you what I did just so you can get an idea of what someone that primarily did strength training did to get to a level where they could complete a marathon injury-free within 16 weeks. So this was my first run. You can see if we go down that I had been running, just not much leading up to, but this run here was the very first run that started the program. It was a 15-kilometer run, the longest distance I'd ever ran, and that's what started it all off. I have my program, which I'll throw up, but I didn't stick to this program religiously. I used it as a guide, and then as it got closer to the marathon, I started to stick to it a little bit more. And that wasn't because I was being lazy. That was because I was very aware that I didn't have much miles in my body when I first started. And I looked at the program and knew that if I was doing, let's just look at week 3, for example, I was very quickly going to get injured because my body is not used to that volume when it comes to long distance running. But then as we get to the later weeks, you can see that I started to up the amount of runs I was doing. And here's the marathon here. And the biggest change for me, the thing I saw that gave me the most noticeable gains, was I started to add the hills into the run. They're less stress on the joints. They encourage high knees, so they encourage your technique to improve for your run. There was one session that I did with a coach just because I wanted to ensure that my technique was on point. It gave me confidence that what I was doing was essentially more or less correct, and the technique wasn't going to be the reason I was going to get injured during my long runs. Obviously find out what you can, which you probably are by watching this video and watching other people's videos on YouTube. I found the Global Triathlon Network was a great channel to help with technique and advice for running. But if you can, like at least one coach session just to have a look specifically at you and the technique that you are doing in your running, I think it will help. Has the potential to help so much to prevent injury for your future running. So now I want to talk about gear, which is probably the most exciting part of this video for me. Running doesn't need that much equipment, but the equipment that it does need, I would say, is essential to having a good running experience. Let's start with the shoe, I think is the most important. So I started off with the Adidas Boost Pulse HD. They were really comfortable, and that's what I thought was important for my running. And you'll be surprised, like I was in real time, to find out that these were good for half the program. It's important to not ignore things like this. I saw that the shoe was starting to fall apart there in terms of its structural integrity. I would probably hold on to them longer if I wasn't training for a marathon. What I replaced them with was the Adidas Ultra Boost 19. So this is essentially a step up from the Adidas Pulse Boost HD. The reason being, I was really happy with that shoe that I got, and this was a step up in terms of price and in terms of quality, but it was on sale. So I believe I got it for a really good price because of a few strings I pulled. I tried on a bunch and nothing felt as comfortable as these, and I've stuck with them and I've not had any issues with my shoes. Shorts. Because of my legs, my thighs can rub together, and when you're doing long distance running, that's going to cause chafing, and it's super uncomfortable, and it stays with you for a few days, stings in the shower. So you just want to make sure that you have some shorts where the material kind of it fits to your body. And then for a top, the same thing, a form-fitting top. This is one of the ones I ran in. I don't know if you can see it, but what I find hilarious here is a segue into the next bit of gear I think you should have, is you can see that on the nipples, there's Vaseline stains. The next thing, which was not important at all until it was really important, was Vaseline and Band-Aids or plasters, whatever you call them. So I did one run where I had the perfect top on for it. It was a good like form-fitting top, and I got nipple chafe. And initially I thought, oh, that's just a bit uncomfortable. But then afterwards, they were raw for days. They stung in the shower. It's just like an open wound on your nipple is not something that's enjoyable. What you want to do is get some Vaseline. I had this laying around in the cupboard. No, I had to go and buy this actually. And just put it on your nipples before your long run. So I initially had to do it to make it bearable to run with those chafed nipples. But then I just started doing it because I never wanted it to happen again. So it was more of a preventative thing. I kind of doubled up. I think you can either do Band-Aids or do Vaseline. I doubled up to prevent it. And then the last bit of gear, which I almost forgot about because it's on my wrist, is an activity tracking watch. I decided to go with a Garmin 245 Forerunner Music. It's definitely not essential, but here's how I view it. Let's say you went into the gym and you lifted weights and they had all the weights you could want, but none of the weights had the number on them of how much they weighed. So you were lifting weight and you could make it challenging for yourself, but you never knew the exact number, and you never knew if you went back into the gym again, if you were doing the same or not. The watch is the equivalent of having the number on the weight, so you know what you're doing. So it's not essential, but it gives so much more accuracy and ability to measure your progress that I found it an essential piece of equipment for this long distance running. Let's talk about the misconceptions that I had and that I think a lot of you guys will have, if you've not done cardio training before, will have towards long distance running. Starting with number one, it's boring. I used to think it was boring, and it makes sense. Having just one foot in front of the other, getting mildly fatigued. Cool, I'm not gonna do that. So what I found out is that the boredom comes from not having any aim, reason, or understanding as to what long distance running can do for you. So the things I get out of long distance running is the mental side of it. It certainly, for me, gave me a fresh perspective on how running can connect you to your environment, connect you to your surroundings that much more. The second thing, and I've kind of already touched on it, is that running doesn't require any skill. You just go out and do it. I have heard people say like how you run is your style. Like everyone has their own type of running style. But to me, there's a spectrum where there is variation allowed, but there's also right and wrongs in terms of running. It's one of the most accessible things you can do, but it's one of the things where, because it's so accessible, people don't do anything to iron out their weakest link, their imbalances, and that's how they get injured. All those things that make running more complex as a type of training are extremely interesting to me, and it gives me that why, an answer to my why am I going out and doing this. And then the final misconception that I had was, if you do long distance running, you get injured. If you don't do the right things, yes you can, but if you do the right things, it's just like building up to a heavier squat. You wouldn't have a beginner come in and just do that weight. What you would do is you would have them learn the technique and slowly build up. With long distance running, it's the same thing. You would slowly build up to a long time running out there for 2 hours. These things take time, and the assumption is that if you're just out there putting that stress on your joints, then your knees are going to be fucked, and it doesn't work that way. It's being aware of your own limitations and where you can improve, and doing that progressive overload, almost the principle from bodybuilding, to develop your conditioning and build up to those longer distances and times. And that's essentially it. I ran and got small. One other question, which I feel I've been asked a fair few times but not yet addressed, is did I get weaker? Did I lose strength? And the answer is I don't know, in the sense of I didn't do anything before running and then do it again after and be like, oh, here's how much weaker I got. I don't know in that sense, but I definitely would have got weaker. The point to that is I can get strong again afterwards. Your body's adaptable. What I focus on is what I'll get good at. So this is what I look like now. Yeah, you stayed till the end, so you got a treat. This is my physique at the moment. You can see it's already bounced back a bit from how I looked after the marathon. Moving forward in terms of long distance training, I'm not a long distance runner now. I just wanted to do that. And where it's put me is due to the complications with coronavirus and so many things getting shut down, because it wasn't an official marathon, there is still that thing in my head where I want to do an official marathon where it's an event and you get a medal at the end and people cheer you on and you're running with other people. Like that complete organized event. I really did want to do that and was so disappointed when that all got cancelled. So I think at one point I would like to still run an actual marathon that's organized. I would recommend to a lot of you guys out there, if you are just interested in dipping your toe in, there's an event called Park Run, and it's run globally around the world. Check if it's in your country, and it happens every Saturday or Sunday. It's a volunteer organized event in local communities, and it's a 5 kilometer distance, and that was my kind of gateway into running in general, and it eventually planted the seed to make me want to think, could I do a marathon? Am I actually capable of doing that? 5K is a great distance. At that distance, it's enough to put in effort and for it to feel not like strength training, but for it to have that intensity to it. And it also has the ability to still benefit, say, your endurance if you're sparring if you're doing boxing or jiu-jitsu, you're rolling. That short 5K distance can still give you cardio gains. And I did that for years before I started running longer distances. And that's everything I wanted to say about my marathon training. So I really appreciate you guys listening. I felt kind of stuck in terms of all the stuff I wanted to say about it, everything I learned and experienced that I thought you guys could learn from without actually having to do 16 weeks of training and then decide if it's something that you want to do. I felt like there was so much information that my audience coming from that strength training background aren't necessarily even going to be excited to click a video about long distance running. So if you made it this far, thank you, and I appreciate you keeping an open mind about your training, which is what I think we all should do if we want to just get overall better, have our bodies better at doing things. So thanks for watching, guys. If you got something out of it, please like the video and subscribe if you're not already. There's lots of content I make that's similar to this, trying different movements. I'll also be making videos about my weightlifting and my gymnastics strength training. And there's also comedy and fun videos. We have a good time here at the Tyson Edwards. So thanks for watching again, and I'll see you for the next video.